Hi, very good evening. Hi, Syed. Hi, Indu. Hi. Hi, Sabiha. Nilesh ji. Dharmveer. Hi, Vijay. Hi, Apurva. Satyan. Hi, Sanjeev. Good evening. Good evening. Hi, Apu. Quite a few people. Hi there. Somebody's waving at me. Pleasure to be here. Hi, Namaskar. Hi, Shireen. Hi, sweetie. Hi there. Hello. Hi, everyone. So, very good evening to each one of you. And as more and more people are joining, I take this opportunity to first and foremost wish all of you a very happy Eid. Eid Mubarak. And may this Eid bring a lot of peace and clear the clouds of confusion that is hanging on us. And may this Eid also take us to the next level of human consciousness, to be able to move from tolerance to inclusion. And may this Eid signify many things as it comes at a time when we are all grappling with issues we do not fully understand. With those remarks, I take the opportunity to thank the Junction, Gautam Goenka in particular, who reached out and said that subsequent to the half an hour that I had spent a couple of weeks, last week, 10 days ago, he said there are a lot of questions on direction and would you therefore be able to come and talk to us? And I said, why not? And it'll be a pleasure to do so. I would like to thank Sabiha for helping me to set up this entire technological platform. And I look forward to spending an hour with you. You see, when I was asked to give a talk for about an hour on direction, I thought that why don't I create a meta model and share with you an end-to-end process that a director consciously or unconsciously undertakes to be able to bring a play to fruition. Just a very quick ramp up on my background, which is for the first 12 years of my theatre life, I was only into acting. But having said that, I used to follow the director to learn as much as I could about the other aspects of the theatre. And in some of these things which I'm saying, I'm also sending a message to the young people who are, venturing into directing plays, saying that you may have been an actor, but it's important that you get engaged with all aspects of the theatre as a learner, as a lifelong learner. Even today I learn. And it was only in the last 26 years that I really, in the 38 years that I have been in the theatre, in the last 26 years that I have really taken the courage to come out and direct plays. Some of the things which may appear to be, as peripheral are actually quite central to becoming a good director. And here, throughout this 1 hour session, I'm going to assume that I'm addressing people who are passionate about the theatre art form and would like to direct good, meaningful, relevant theatre. But having said that, I call it a meta model because it's going to be applicable to almost any type of theatre that you would like to choose to direct. But in the last 26 years, to be able to muster the courage to become a director, it's also important that I spent a lot of time studying theatre. I was acting, I was in practical experience with some of the masters, but I also spent enormous amount of time, in literally ravaging through the literature of theatre. What do I mean by that? It's important, no matter what type of theatre you do, we cannot forget, and to borrow a phrase, we cannot forget that we all stand on the shoulders of the giants of the past. Therefore, it's extremely important that if you want to be a good director, you go back to the history of theatre, understand great masters at work, read great theatre, great plays, read Shakespeare, read Ibsen, read Molière, read George Bernard Shaw. Look at the works of Stella Adler. Look at the giants who have directed in the past, whether it is Konstantin Stanislavski, whether it is Meyerhold, whether it is Meissner, Peter Brook, Bertolt Brecht. Any of them, it's important that you study them so that you become enriched with this art form before you venture into direction. That's the point I'm making. Besides that, it's extremely important that besides reading plays, reading the masters, reading directors at work, strange as it may sound, but I'm strongly recommending that you visit museums, art galleries, watch other forms of performing arts, classical dance, for example, the circus, the martial arts, because you draw from all of these if you want to become a good director. You see, when, sometime in the beginning of this year that I had decided that sometime in April we would launch an actors workshop. And I actually must thank Rashmi and Apurva Mehra for supporting me on this. Rashmi, because providing me the platform of Udan. And I actually started working with Shireen Saif in creating an actors workshop. And we were looking at a very condensed workshop of about 24 hours, 2 hours a day, over 12 days. But when I started working on it, I also was able to come up with, which I've been working for a long time now, a 21-day residential actors workshop. Then we put it on hold and I started working on a director's workshop. And actually, in the last 3 months, I have created a director's workshop which will run into a week of 7 days, 8 nights of residential work, where if people who attend will be able to come out of it and actually direct Shakespeare and Ibsen, Bertolt Brecht, as well as a regional play. And when Gautam asked me to speak about direction, I thought I will take the juice from this manual that I've created for a 21-day program and share that as an overview. You see, when we talk about, when I chose to, direct Shakespeare, I'm just giving these as backgrounds and hints for young directors who want to sort of really get into this art in a profound manner. When I decided to direct Shakespeare, it took me 2 years of research before I mustered the courage to say, I'll do it. When I decided to direct Pillars of Society, the first play of Henry Ibsen that I directed, it took me 3 years of research. And then I said, yes, I'm ready to direct it. The point I'm making is that unless you equip yourself with the rich repertoire of what is this that excites you, then actually there's no point, because we can sort of pass on in some form or the other. In fact, anybody who wants to direct, I would take your attention to probably, if not read the entire manual, to the oldest written document available in the field of theatre and performing arts, including dance. It's actually from India, and it's called the Natya Shastram. It has got 36 chapters, 6,000 verses. But it covers every aspect of theatre, from the stage to the sets, to the acting, to the expressions, to the costumes, to the lighting, to the makeup. And when you go through that is when you realize how profound and how vast this field is. So coming back to the, giving with this canvas, with this background is what I developed the residential 7-day program, which someday, I hope to actually bring to fruition. But when I use the word meta model, let's understand what we really mean by this. A meta model is more like a high-level model in which every other model of any genre, any structure, any type of theater you do should fit in. And that is my claim. It's a very simple model, but it's generally the simple things that we don't really focus upon, or at least don't do that consciously. And I'm arguing that conscious attention needs to be brought into that. Now, when I use the expression that, it can be for any type of theater, there are many classifications of theater, but for our purpose today, I would like to bring your attention to two broad forms. And I'm arguing that while my work has purely been on the former, which is called observed theater, and the second one is called participatory theater. Observed theater is one in which you are performing on the stage and the audience is sitting in front of you or around you. But there is what is called an aesthetic distance, and we call it an aesthetic distance between the observer and the observed. That is the type of work I have done in whether it is all the classics that I have touched upon. There is another form of theater which is called participatory theater. And in that there are many forms. Nowadays we even talk of immersive theater, experimental theater, inclusive theater, and so on. But essentially the fundamental difference is, and I'm putting it in a very tactical fashion, in the observed theater, the play in very many ways is an end in itself. It's a product which you're presenting. In participatory theater, that is not so. It is a means to an end. Participatory theater can be social theater like street theater. It can be psychodrama, where you're working with a group of people who would like to relive their past as a catharsis process. Or it could be therapeutic. And there are many other forms. But I'm arguing that the model that I'm going to talk about now, take you through in the next 45 minutes or so, will be applicable to all forms of theater because it's highly chunked up. And when it is chunked up, obviously, and when I get about 45 minutes to cover it, obviously there will be many gaps in what I'm trying to convey. And you will have numerous questions because some of them might be conclusions that I'm making without taking you through the thought process of how I came to that conclusion or the experiential evidence of how I came to that conclusion. My suggestion at this stage for today is that one of the things which you could do is probably grab a pencil and a paper or any writing instrument and jot down some of the things that I'm saying if you're investing the time listening to me, so that there is some value addition, hopefully. And if there are any questions, you can email it to me through Junction, and one promise I will make is that every email will be answered. And in fact, if I find that the questions are interesting, I can even make a FAQ and send it back to all those people who reach out to Junction based on the questions that might come out during or at the end of the presentation today. The meta model, one is I distinguished between what is called observed theater and participatory theater. The other thing a director should be aware of when he chooses a play is this a climactic play or an episodic play? Now, what does that mean? A climactic play is one where the play that you're going to present starts in the middle of a plot. In other words, a lot of things have happened in the past which is not going to be visible, but which are directly connected to the play that you are staging. An example is Ibsen's Ghosts. Many things have happened. The husband has been promiscuous, the maid has given birth to a child out through him, the maid's daughter is already working there, the son is studying abroad, he has fallen in love with his half-sister. All this has happened when Ghosts starts. The other one is called episodic theater. And episodic theater is, for example, Shakespeare. Because the play starts and then there are many ramifications and build up. The scope of an episodic theater is the canvas is vast. There are plots, there are subplots, there are scenes, there are scene changes, there are locale changes. N number of things happen in an episodic theater. A director should be aware of that. In a climactic theater, generally the number of cast is less. The location is one. It could be a bedroom, it could be a drawing room, living room, at best two scenes, two settings, and it's very compressed. There are no subplots. In some ways, it is linear. Whereas in episodic theatre, it sort of really goes all over the map, and you must be able to knit it together so that the fabric that you are creating as a director does not have holes. So these are some of the background things I'm talking to you. I am, of course, speaking through a stream of consciousness, so you need to, as I said, there will be many gaps in what I'm saying because of the time limitations that we have. But these are some of the things you need to start thinking about, in terms of becoming a good director, a good director where you are giving your personal best. Now, when we are talking about a meta model, as I said, for the sake of pedagogical purposes, for the sake of teaching, for the sake of understanding, I have split it up into chapters. You see, whether you do a workshop, whether you do a lecture, there has to be a structure. That doesn't mean that it follows in a linear fashion. Actually, once you internalize the various chapters that I'm going to talk about, they start playing in your mind and they get interwoven. There is a synesthesia, a process of synesthesia which happens. So while you're working on my chapter 3, you may be also working on my chapter 1. But it's very difficult to teach it that way. So for the sake of understanding, I have created 12 chapters. I'll list out the 12 chapters. I'll take one at a time and gloss over it because that's all I can do. 1 or 2 chapters I would like to spend a lot more in depth so that there is a greater understanding from a immediacy point of view for a director. During the course of this, I may be taking examples, because I've lived now for 35 years in Dubai. I may be taking examples of what I've seen around me. I want to make it very clear that the intention, if I take an example, though I won't name anybody, the intention is purely for learning purposes. No offense is meant, none should be taken. I will assume that you've granted me that permission and, draw upon examples if they come to my cognitive consciousness. If we were to look at, when I said that I would be talking about 12 chapters, the way I've divided it is, chapter 1 I have called the Director's Universe. And when I come to that, I will talk a little bit more about it, the Director's Universe, especially in community theatre, as we are directly associated with. Then I would like to talk about the qualities of a good director. What are some of his or her facets? What are the qualities? Then I would go to choosing a script and chewing on the script. Then we will go to reading the script. And reading the script will cover many, many things, and I'll come back to it. Then I'll go to settings in which the play will be performed, which is the role of the director. Then and only then will I move to auditions, casting, and team building. And then the director sits back and works on what is called the director's working script, or what we call technically the director's score. That is really the crux on which I would like to spend a bit of time. Then comes rehearsals. Rehearsals also is split up into early rehearsals, mid rehearsals, late rehearsals, and tech rehearsal. And then I will talk give you a few reminders on what you need to keep your finger on when you are directing a play. Spend maybe a couple of minutes on the system or the method, which is a good way to motivate and inspire actors. A couple of sentences on audience perspective, and then I will give my closing comments. So this is how I have sort of structured, the next literally 40 minutes that I have at my disposal. When I talk about the director's cosmos in community theatre, the lines get very blurred. At the end of the day, a director takes ownership for the play, and therefore the director needs to look at every aspect of the play. For some, he is accountable. For example, the acting, he is accountable. For the staging of the play, he is accountable. But he's also responsible for working with The people who are, for example, designing the costume, who are doing the sets, who are doing the lights, who are doing the music, who are doing the sound, who is constructing the stage. Therefore, there is a whole universe in which the director operates. And this is just at the level of accountability and responsibility. A director, by definition, should be a great dramaturge, because if you decide to do a play, it's important that you understand more and more about the author, more and more about the society at the time in which it was written, the times in which it was written. To borrow a German term, it's called the Zeitgeist, which is the spirit of the times in which that play was written. You need to research what was the scientific environment at that time, what was the religious environment at that time, what was the social environment at that time, what was the cultural environment at that time. All of this you'll have to, that's why it takes a year before you can even say that I'm ready to direct the next play. At least it takes me a year. Maybe I'm a bit slow. And then you must also understand that the role of a director, I have come up with what is called a 3I acronym for what is the role of a director. The role of a director is to provide insight. Once he has the team, he provides the insight. Because as a director, you're sitting at a higher level. If you're sitting at a higher level and you don't see more than what others see, then you have no business sitting there. So if you see more than what others see, then you must be able to provide insight into the play that you're directing. And about all the things that I just now mentioned. The second thing is you should be able to inspire the team. Because the role of a director is to bring about the best in the team. And therefore you have to be able to inspire the team. And the third is integrity. Whether it is process integrity, your thought, word and action being aligned, whatever you're expressing is aligned to your feelings, absolute integrity and commitment to what you are doing. And this is at the high level what I call the director's cosmos. Then I said that I'll talk about some of the qualities of a good director. First and foremost, a good director should be somebody who is empathetic towards the human condition. There are trials, there are tribulations, there are victories, there is misery, there is joy, there is hope, there is tragedy, there is comic. This is the human condition. This is the beauty of being human. So a director should be sensitive to the human condition. It's good if you're able to define yourself as an educator. Because after all, the team is going to come and in many ways surrender to you because you're the director. Are you an educator? Are you an influencer? Are you a negotiator? Do you understand the human psyche? Do you really know when to give advice to somebody, when to step back? How do you explore somebody's inner potential? When to pull back? So these are some of the qualities that you need to have. You have to be a politician, you have to be a negotiator, you have to be a psychologist, you have to be an educator, you have to be an artist. It helps if you're also an actor, because it definitely brings tremendous value to what you're doing. That was point number 2. So as I said, I'm glossing over it. There'll be many gaps. So the first is the director's cosmos is huge. The universe is huge. The second is you have to introspect about the qualities of a good director. Then comes choosing a script. This is a very personal thing. But having said that, I would strongly recommend that a director chooses a script with which he or she resonates. And what we are really talking about is you are able to answer 3 questions. What is this play about? What for are you staging this play? And for whom are you staging this play? At this stage, I would like to take a liberty and make a request, which is whenever you decide to start a piece of work as a director, I know that it's an age of technology and you have iPads and, notebooks and so on and so forth. But consider this. Consider that invest in a notebook, some color pens, some color pencils, because that becomes your journal for that play. And it is yours. It's your personal journal in which you can able to pour out your thoughts. And some of the things which I'm talking about. Step number 1, choosing a script. What is it that's connected in the script? write it down in your own language. When you write it down, it creates clarity for yourself. And when it brings clarity, then what happens is that you are able to also communicate that. Am I because I'm getting some message which is saying the video is paused. I've not done any of that. Do I continue? Can one person respond? Do I continue, or have I got stuck? Okay, I think I'm back on air. Can somebody give me a cue saying that what I'm saying is visible and audible? Can somebody just send me a message or wave? Or, is there a lag or a network issue? I'm not so sure. Everything seems to be perfect at my end. Should I continue, Satyan? Can you help me?